Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Roxanne, Anthony, Flat Earth and Chocolate Saying. Good to have you all.
Yo, yo.
Hiya.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Looking a bit blurry there, Nathan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll sort that out.
Look about 10 years younger because of the blur.
Yeah, it's
totally
it's the Barbara
intentional.
Walters filter.
Yeah.
There we go. That's obviously me knocking the autofocus. So looking shiny now. Excellent. Anyway, any signs of curvature?
Zero. No evidence of curvature whatsoever.
No.
Anybody at all? Earth curve?
Nothing,
Nobody?
no.
Nope.
Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Absolutely nothing. How are you going to prove that there's an axial rotation? It's nonsense.
Well, they prove it by assuming the Earth is a sphere and that it's rotating.
Yeah, it's like orbiting the sun. How are you going to prove that we orbit the sun unless you got somebody in
How
third
do they
person
even prove there's
orthographic?
an axis? How do they even prove there's an axis itself?
I know. You need that sphere for there to be an axis, boys and girls. Show us that curve.
Right.
Yeah, we ain't moving. We ain't budging a smaking inch. Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without a container for all the people who believe in the vacuum of space?
Nope, none.
No.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
Yeah.
Nada.
Hey, Owen.
Hello.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Well, only at the presupposed spherical Earth, I guess.
There's no evidence for any of these claims. I mean, we ask these housekeeping questions daily, and there is none. That's why the ballers don't come in anymore. They blame Nathan, but the reality is, if they could prove their stories, they would be in here and ramming it down our throats, and I'd be on your side. So, yeah, you guys keep pretending that there's this boycott going on. We'll just sit here and wallow in your lack of ability to prove anything. Shout out to the orbits.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Sun's not a tangible object, Nathan.
Yeah.
Arwin?
No.
About the R value, that presuppositional R value. Any evidence of that? Earth radius?
No evidence of radius.
No.
Let's just remember what the definition of radius is. It's the distance from the center to the circumference, right? But that works on a two-dimensional circle on a piece of paper, but it also works on a three-dimensional sphere. So just to be clear, we're meaning the spherical radius. And of course, you need a sphere for there to be a radius. So basically, it's another way of saying prove our boys and girls.
We need
That's it,
a
that
sphere
concludes
for
housekeeping.
radius, and we need curvature for a sphere. So kind of falling behind there, ballers.
So is there going to be another globe
Stars in a
light?
globe around us.
Is there going to be another globe light tour? We were talking to Gary John, myself and Ranty earlier, and he was implying that you're going to have another tour in 2019. Is that correct?
Yes. That's a yes.
Awesome.
I haven't got specific details yet, but it's a yes. It's a yes. It's going to be, I'll just yes.
No, that's fair
Yes.
enough. It's early days. You've only just done the last one, so it's not like you can have all the details ready for the 2019 one. It's, you
I
know,
think it might be like a bit of a relay going on this time. Bit
Instead of one guy doing everything, it'll be
yeah,
running
passing
legs.
for about
Eric.
something. Lines.
Oh, yeah, that was quick. Hey, guys. Morning or afternoon. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, Eric.
Hi.
Roxanne.
Right, I do have some information that may be of interest. Now, I'm not too sure how much I should say about it, so I'm going to say the minimum. But what I will say is the following. I've been in touch with the government, and the response that I've had back from the government regarding how they teach the national curriculum. Are you ready? This is really rather embarrassing, but this is what he actually said, and I'll quote it verbatim, right? That means, Sean, you read it word for word.
Quote, yeah.
And what he says, this guy says, as part of this heliocentric topic, we would expect pupils to find out about how our understanding of the solar system has developed. This would include looking at how the geocentric model of the solar system gave way to the heliocentric model. So for those that don't know, it's the fact that when the heliocentric model overtook the geocentric model, when somebody noticed that Mercury and Venus transited the front face of the sun and none of the other planets did. So that's where the geocentrism took a step back. And they realized that we must be the third planet because that was proof for them. So the heliocentric model came in at that point. But this is where it gets interesting. It says, this should include looking at how the geocentric model of the solar system gave way to the heliocentric model. Shut up! And the important work of scientists such as Ptolemy and Copernicus. This is the important bit. The Earth's orbit around the sun is established scientific fact. Now, this is a ministerial and public communications division officer, otherwise known as a gatekeeper. But his claim is that the sun is established scientific fact. So obviously I wrote back to him and I've asked him, right, what is that scientific fact that you believe to be true? Now, I'm not expecting a response to him, and I don't even think I'm going to wait for him to reply because he's just basically a troll. He's a gatekeeper. But he believes that the heliocentric model is scientific fact, and they've got scientific facts that prove that the Earth is orbiting the sun. I wonder what evidence they've got to support that assertion. Well, none. Are there any dumbtards out there that would be able to point us in the direction of the evidence that this guy believes exists for the Earth orbiting around the sun? Because he claims it's a scientific fact. I claim bullshit, but I don't know where the evidence that he might rely upon is. So if there's any ballers out there that might be able to point us in the direction for the scientific fact that this claim is based on, I'd love to see it. What's the proof of an orbit around the sun?
Well, this was covered on the early bird by Arwin and Ali B, and Arwin was absolutely spot on in his responses, which is to say that this falls outside of the remit of science. You can't vary the independent variable, and you can't establish a cause and effect reasoning. All you can do in astrophysics is observe phenomena. You've got step one only of the scientific method. You cannot vary and manipulate that independent variable to establish the cause of the phenomena that you are trying to examine. You've only got the observation of the phenomena. That's it. So it's not scientifically proven. The guy's wrong. And that, in essence, is the definition of his expression of the partisan views that he holds.
I agree completely.
Thank you for watching my show, Nathan.
Yeah.
So what I want to do, I want to appeal to the ballers. I want someone, because I'm stupid, right? I don't know where this evidence is, and I'm a retard and a moron and all these things, right? What is the scientific evidence for the Earth orbiting the sun? How do you prove it? So everybody but Rumpus, if anybody knows the answer, let's hear it.
Well, if they won't give you one. It falls outside of the remit of science. No one's going to be establishing cause and effect. No one's going to be varying and manipulating independent variables to cause any phenomena. Nobody's going to be engaging in systematic experimentation that's based on a hypothesis. None of this will ever come forward for his assertion. He is wrong.
Einstein, Gleam's saying in chat that Einstein clearly stated that they would look identical and you could never tell the difference. Yeah, I agree. But my response back to him was that, well, if the Earth is orbiting the sun, that means there would be a phase shift every 12 hours from when the observer would be going with the orbit of the sun and then with against the orbit of the sun. And we've got evidence that strongly indicates that that does not happen. There is no phase shift every 12 hours. And obviously, I'm referring, for those that are not aware, of the ring laser gyroscope or the fiber optic gyroscope tests, that when you run them for 24 hours, the transition between daytime and nighttime doesn't have a phase shift that goes with it, and it has to be there. And it would be pronounced because you go in with the spin of the Earth, but orbiting the sun as well. So you're going to catapult. You are literally going to catapult round from every 12 hours. From daytime would become nighttime. There'd be a catapult effect, and it would be detectable. It would come up on the thing because you're going with the spin of the Earth and the orbit, and then against the orbit with the spin of the Earth.
Sun.
So, pardon?
You're going with and against the sun's orbit, so you're travelling around the sun. And because you're spinning obviously in one direction only, half the time you're travelling with the orbit that your trajectory carries you around the sun, and in the other 12 hours you're against the orbit of the sun.
And obviously the massive size of the radius of the Earth that we're told is where you would get that figure from. You would be able to get that tangential speed and you would notice an effect change. And obviously there isn't one. So I want to know what evidence that he accepts that proves the point that he teaches children, because I think he's talking bullshit. But I don't think he realises.
To be honest,
because it's in the book. That's all.
Say again, Eric.
Because it's in the book, his Bible, so it must be true.
But he's committed himself to. He's committed himself to a standard in his reply, and it is the standard that is preached, which is something that I've been very keen to get across to people, flat earthers and globe heads, which is to say that science is quite narrow. It's been hijacked. People call science something that isn't science, and in essence, that's defined too, pseudoscience. If you're going to claim that you're a practitioner of science, the scientific method, and you're not, then you are by definition a pseudoscientist. That's what astrophysicists are, pseudoscientists, not scientists. They're not following the scientific methods. So he is incorrect in his assertion, and by making it, you didn't need to. I know when you read that correspondent to me, you were like, well, that's my knee-jerk reaction. And it's like, well, yeah, it's still a fair point, but ultimately I would have said, well, no, the standards you've laid down, scientific evidence, please provide this to me. What is this scientific experiment that has been validated based on the hypothesis to establish the cause of the effect? What is all of this information that you think you have when you claim that you've got scientific proof of the heliocentric model? The clue is in the word model. Hello, Zinda.
Hello.
Good to have you.
Yep. Astronomers are presuppositional philosophers.
Absolutely.
That's what they technically are.
Yeah, it goes back to my question that I asked, and I should keep asking it because it's a really good one. What is the difference between a philosopher and a heliocentric physicist? What is the difference? Because they both seem to do the same job. Just one implies that one's more credible than the other. But I wonder whether or not philosopher might have actually been used as a slur back in the day, because although it's seen as a credible position now, it would also be apt that if you were not a physicist or you were a physicist of pseudoscience, that would be the opposing position to a scientist. That he that preaches a pseudoscience would actually be a philosopher. So I wonder whether philosophy is what Copernicus actually was doing, not physicisting, being a physicist.
It doesn't matter what the label is. If they're not adhering to that methodology, then they're not performing science. They are practitioners of pseudoscience by definition.
They're just like medical doctors. They're practicing medicine. They're just like lawyers. They're practicing law.
Hey, Zinder, I didn't see you join. Have you just joined?
I've just joined. Yeah, I'd listened to the last 5 minutes, I guess. So, yeah.
Was it you that was saying yesterday that you've kind of shifted back towards the globe because of your girlfriend?
No, I said I started to think again like a glober a little. I mean,
right.
we talked a little about.
Yeah, it must be those two globes up front staring you in the face, right?
Right, none of those now. No jokes like that. No need.
What I'd like to do, I'd like to stimulate a conversation between Zinder and Roxanne, because Zinder's sliding back towards the globe and Roxanne's here to halt your fall. Stab you in the eye with some facts and discussion and evidence and stuff, because I know the ballers won't join.
Do that. I'm happy to do that. You're just going to need to give me 2 seconds because I'm just dealing with my dog in the background. So
sure.
Right.
Nigger. He's in one of those moods. Let's kick P out.
will take the position of where before I started to join the Hangouts, so it would make it a little bit more interesting, I guess.
No, I want you to play the baller position that you're sliding back towards.
Yeah, I said
Yeah.
going before I joined
if you're
the
thinking that it
Hangouts.
might be a sphere, this is going to be a really interesting conversation because I don't know. Let's just see where I don't know where it's going to go. But I've not seen Roxanne in full flow, but I haven't also seen Zinda in full flow. So it'd be really interesting just to stoke the fire a little bit and see what flames erupt.
Well, I guess I'll act a little bit and don't take all my arguments too serious.
All right, so the scene's going to be that you're kind of face to face, right, in the street, and it's just a conversation. There's no fallouts, no disagreements, no fighting. It's not going to. Don't do what Rumpus does. Just have the conversation, and then just see if there's a back and forth. And I don't know. This is new to me. I've not seen this happen before. But I'm quite like looking forward to this because this
just
is
before
kinda...
you do. There is an outstanding offer from Quantum Eraser, Zinda. So he said if you want him to inform your girlfriend that she's a practitioner of pseudoscience, he's more than welcome to do that for you.
Yeah, he'll do great with it.
I'm sure she will meet him, or I'm sure she will come here. No, she won't, I guess. So I think he can't inform her at all. If he wants, he can make one of his famous monologues again. And one day maybe I will show it to her. I hope she won't stab me in the back after it. So, so yeah, but I don't think he will be able to talk to her directly. I mean, I won't do it to her, I guess.
Fair enough. The offer's always there.
Yeah, does she know that you are dealing with Flat Earth? Or did
yeah,
you break it to her?
So 2 days before, the day before, my roommate he came to me and he talked about Flat Earth Hero, I guess, the one who challenged Wolfie, right, with the flight chart things, and she was there, and then I said, yeah, I heard about him and I talked a little bit, and then I got her real position about Flat Earth, right? So it was kind of nice interaction. So I didn't tell her that. I didn't tell her about my real position. I didn't tell her that I think the Earth isn't a globe. So yeah, maybe one day I will. But I heard her intentions about the flat Earth, and she said, yeah, those are just people who want to make themselves look smart. They have no life, etc., etc. So yeah,
That's
doesn't
cute.
matter.
Very wise.
Yeah.
Roxanne, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
Right, so what I'll do is I'll just give you both a lead intro. Zinda is kind of on the fence. He's neither one nor the other, but he leans more towards ball and he's backsliding a little bit. Roxanne goes down to Speaker's Corner and speaks to people face to face, and they see the whites of each other's eyes. And basically, she doesn't assert that the Earth's flat. She asserts that we don't live on a sphere. So basically, Zinda's current position that leans him most towards the flat Earth might be, or against the flat Earth, might be to do with the sun and what the sun actually is. Zinda, do you want to just state where you're at with the sun?
Well, I will state my. I mean, it. I already acknowledged, right?
That really just say to you, where's your thoughts with everything to do with the subject?
In order to debate something, I don't think it will be good to debate to me in my current position, because it will just be like an agreement of some sort. So I will say my current position about the sun and the moon, which I accepted like 2 weeks ago, that it doesn't have to be material at all. And this was one of the things that kept me away from the flat Earth. Yet, in order to make this debate a little bit more interesting, I think we should debate on my position before I even joined the panel, before I joined the show, before I shifted my mind a little bit.
Okay, so go for it. Yeah, put me in the picture of where you're at then. Where are you at with things?
So let's put myself in the picture for sake of the debate. All right. I'm a total globe earther. I think flat Earth is just some crazy people. and I'm just interested to listen to them what they say, because I'm kind of interested in their psychology. I just want to see how flat earthers think and how they come to the conclusion why the earth isn't a ball, which obviously is a ball.
And from my point of view, I wanna kind of do the same opposite, because once upon a time I thought I was living on what I was taught I was living on, and now I don't feel that way. So I want to kind of ask you why you think you live on what you were taught you were living on.
Well, first of all, there's zero reason why the whole world should be lying to me. We have all these pictures from NASA. We have all the pictures from every space agency. Everything they created works perfectly on a sphere Earth, works perfectly on the heliocentric model.
May I ask you something? Is that, are you giving me your personal response, or would you say it's fair to say some of your answer right now is somewhat of a programmed response? Because it doesn't sound very personal, what you're saying.
Well, how is programmed? How do you mean? Have I been programmed?
No, a programmed response, as in a response that's been taught to you. Because what you're telling me is really the same thing that I got taught. You're regurgitating the same things I said when I started looking into this for the first time. But what I want to know is, why do you personally feel you live on what you were taught you were living on? So you've been taught what you're living on. Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that? Why do you believe that you're living on exactly what you were taught you were living on?
Well, I have no reason to doubt it, because the same as I have no reason to doubt that computers work with ones and zeros. I don't study computer science, yet it works, and everything. When something works and people told me it works this way, I have zero reason to doubt it.
Seen any evidence of anything that you've been taught? Actual evidence, like real evidence of what you've been taught?
Well, depends what you see as evidence. Do you need scientific evidence? Because I am no scientist, and I don't see how these. I don't need the scientific method.
Scientific proof of gravity, you know.
Proof so I need
Earth orbits things, and you know, proof that we're living on a ball. You know, that we've got a molten core, etc., etc. Those kind of.
Right. So if you have another thing than gravity, why we keep on the Earth, I'm happy to listen to you. Yet I've never heard any explanation whatsoever that would explain why I'm standing on the ground and not flying in the air.
So your response to that is to say that you want me to prove otherwise?
Yes, pretty much, because I can go with either I can say I don't know anything I ever heard, right? I can say, all right, maybe I don't even exist at all. Yet the people who told me, all right, there is gravity and we stand on the ground and don't fly away because of gravity, they gave me an explanation which I can accept. And I did accept it, because I've never heard another explanation that could explain this phenomena.
So you would say explanation. Would you say that you could say explanation and not evidence? Would you agree that it's not evidence you've ever been given? You've just been given explanations for what you've been taught.
To me, there has never been given direct evidence, yet I trust the other 7 billion people on the Earth that some of them looked into it and looked into the evidence and could have proven them wrong. So.
And yeah. when you quote 7, did you say 7 billion?
Yeah.
I know that might have just been a rough number, but why would you quote a number like that?
Because there are around 7 billion people living on Earth.
And you know that because, why do you know that? Is that just something else you've been taught?
Something else than 7 billion people?
No, I'm saying that number is something else that you've been taught.
Oh, so you think there aren't 7 billion people on Earth?
Well, I don't know if we can take it as a self-evident truth, can we? That there's
Well,
actually that many people that live.
So
where we
what
live.
makes you think otherwise? Because you know, just saying, we have cities, we have people who count. You know, that there are a lot of people who aren't even registered
We have
yet.
authorities. We have authorities that do census. Yeah.
Yeah, we have I mean, from every country, right? And we have cities, and we can see how many buildings there are, and we can count how many villages there are. And once we count everything together, we can assume that there are such amount of people on the Earth. I never did it. So
Then you have to assume that it's all correct.
If you could finish this sentence for me, then, right, in like a really simple, like pretend I'm 5, okay?
Yeah.
Just and try and make it as conclusive as possible, like, and maybe try and stick a bit of evidence in this sentence somewhere. I believe I live on what I was taught because, and just finish that sentence for me.
Well, as a 5-year-old.
And like, obviously it has to make sense. Yeah.
So just didn't understand it right. I have to tell it to a 5-year-old, or I have to?
No, like just as an example, you know, I believe I'm living on what I was taught because and finish the sentence.
Well, I believe I live on what we were told because smarter people than me looked into it and came to that conclusion.
Okay. And on that note, I'll finish there.
Yeah.
I'll finish there.
So all these persons in the past, you know, all these geniuses, who am I? Who am I to say they are too stupid to come to such a unvalid conclusion?
I'd probably say I'd argue the fact that they would whether they were geniuses or not.
Yeah, can you define genius, and do you have any
No. This is the wrong approach. Why would you assume that they would be honest?
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I'm
Intelligence
not sure that I
and
would take that as a
dishonesty,
given, but I think
you know?
people are taking it as a bit of a given. All of these things, you know. I just told these things and then kind of go, yeah, that's a given. Then
these big thinkers, geniuses, they're just priests. It's the new invention. Oh well,
they have international think tanks to do what you've just done and regurgitated what you've been taught as if it's gospel.
Let's just a little pause. How many fallacies did I just commit?
About 4. I kept well adjourned. I kept silent.
But I appeal to authority. I don't know. I didn't strawman, right? I don't even know all of them.
That's how you know you're not really a baller anymore.
So
the baller would even recognize that they're committing these fallacies.
Let's go.
Way to go.
Let's go back to gravity. All right. I think this path is leaning nowhere. So about gravity, right, and the other explanations, which I think. Flat earthers usually like to say there is buoyancy and density, which makes us keep on the ground, right? Is this your position too, Roxanne?
Yeah.
So how does density and buoyancy know where is up and down? How does it? I mean, why?
I think I'm alright to not start getting myself into quotes and stuff. As I said to the guys, this is not really my cup of tea, going back and forth with someone that I can't look at face to face. So I normally like to use visual representations and
no problem.
Hello, Sebastian. How you doing?
But I'm happy to throw that out to the panel if anyone on the panel
Sorry.
is happy to answer that.
Hold on 1 second. Hi, Sebastian. Can you hear us?
Oops. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good to have you. Thanks for joining.
All right. So the reason why there has to be gravity is because buoyancy and density don't explain why denser objects fall to the ground and don't fly in the air. So
they do when you put the word relative in front of the word density.
Relative. I'm talking to Roxanne, am I not?
Well, she relinquished the reins, did she not?
What?
I did. Sorry, I did. I threw it out to the panel. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I do agree. The
Sorry.
word density alone doesn't explain, but when you put the word relative density in front of it, immediately that gives you a quote direction. But it's not a direction; it's a state relative to the two things that you're relating against each other.
Sorry, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I probably should have said
Let's
that.
just remind the
more full
panel.
sentence. That's my bad.
Let's just remind the panel that Zinda is playing devil's advocate. He doesn't need ripping a new one.
Yeah. So the reason. The reason why relative density doesn't explain why denser things always tend to go downwards, not upwards. Well, let's say there is, let's just say up is where the sky is and down is where the earth is. Denser things always go down, no matter how the density around them around them is.
So if I hang you upside down from a tree, and you look at the two objects, and you see the denser one displace the less dense one, your perception is upside down. So you will then perceive that the denser object is now going up. Correct?
Yeah.
So it's relative to you in this context. It's not relative to a general up or down.
Let me give you another example, and I already gave it you, I think, some weeks ago, but just so the other people can hear it. We have, wait a moment. Yeah? Sorry, ich bin gerade ein bisschen auf Spaß, Debate mit den anderen. Ich bin gerade ein bisschen am Spaß, Debate mit den anderen.
Get back to work, Zinda.
So sorry, the thing with the chambers, right? So we have three chambers. In the middle is a fluid, and in the top two is another fluid. In the top, in the middle we have water, and on top of the chamber with the water is a denser fluid. Let's say liquid mercury, and under it is also liquid mercury. Those chambers are separated from each other. Now we connect them by a valve. All right, we open the valve. What happens?
They will displace.
Yeah. So where will the water go?
It'll relative to the medium it's in. So the water will be less dense than the mercury. So it will it'll go up in your context, right?
Yeah. So it is.
I would say it would go to a state where it is less dense.
Yeah. So the mercury under the water, right, is also denser than water, right?
Correct.
So why doesn't water flow down, and why doesn't the mercury then flow up? Because they displace them.
Because you can't compress a liquid. You can't have two liquids in the same place at once. One has to give way to the other. One's bigger and heavier. The other one's smaller and less heavy. So the bigger one says, "Get out of my way." And the only place that you can go, unless it can go laterally, i.e., without outside the walls of a container, but that's another discussion. The only place that it can go is the only place that it can go. And if the bigger, heavier one says, "I'm going there," and you're not going there, then where else can it go?
Well, it always seems to go to the upper place, right? The water will always go to the higher chamber.
Yeah,
Yet when we turn it, it will always go up again. So it will always follow the same direction, no matter how the relative density is. Why is that?
Your frame of reference you've rotated, but you haven't changed the axial alignment, which is what you would need to do to prove that there is an up and down.
Well, if we, no matter in which orientation we have the chamber, it will always go towards the sky. The water will always flow towards the sky.
Yeah, but you're changing, like I said, you're changing your frame of reference rather than changing the axis of rotation.
So there is a universal up and down.
Only if you can manipulate it and prove that there is.
Well,
Sorry,
I
Anthony,
just did.
can I just interrupt for a second? Is anybody on the
go.
panel who's not chatting willing to drop?
I'm getting a little...
Zachary Sabala was hoping to join.
All right.
Anybody willing to not use Zinda?
No, it's all right.
Anybody willing to drop?
If not, he'll just have to wait and queue up like everybody else.
I'll drop some.
Is that you, Chocolate?
No problem. I'll try to come back later.
Thank you.
So
just be ready to kick P Miles when he rejoins. 'Cause you know there's a gap.
I think it would be more constructive if Roxanne can talk to a real ball earther, and let's just put the gravity conversation just aside for a moment. All right.
Sure.
Well, just before we do, so Zach's joined specifically for that reason. Hey Zach, how you doing?
Perfect.
Hello everybody, how are y'all doing?
Very well, thank you for joining.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Nathan. I just want to ask him one thing. What makes you think that gravity is holding you to the ground? Who told you that?
Zinder, Zach, Zinder.
Oh, it's very nice to meet you, Zinder. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Who told me that gravity is holding me to the ground? I think.
Did you go to college? Did you take physics in college or anything like that?
No, I didn't go. I didn't go to college, which I mean, where I'm from, it's kind of something different. We never even had science at school until 16-year-old. So I just all my knowledge I have just from self-interest and reading some articles about it. So
okay.
Yeah.
I would advise you to go and watch some of Walter Lewin. He's here on YouTube. He has all of his lectures that he put out. He was a MIT physics professor. And what he says is that gravity doesn't come into play until you start dealing with planets, star systems, things like that, things in space, things that we haven't actually been to and touched. He will tell you that the electric field and electricity holds everything to the Earth for thousands of kilometers. I think it's his 802 lecture number 1 or maybe lecture number 2. But in college physics, they teach here, at least in the United States at MIT University, that it is electricity that holds us to the ground. The flow of a positive to a negative is what holds us to the Earth.
So, yeah.
Clear that up.
All right.
That's what they teach here in our college physics courses. Not at all.
All right. So I know
and
that
they prove it mathematically.
Okay, so I know that electromagnetism is the reason why we don't fall to the Earth, through the Earth, or why?
No, not magnetism.
Not magnetism.
Nothing to do with the electric field. The flow of the electric field from a positive charge to a negative charge. There was always a flow of constant energy, according to mainstream physics.
Yeah, I didn't understand the last part. I think you were breaking.
That is taught.
Is it my or is it breaking up a little?
Zach's a little bit weak in his connection.
Yeah. Can you repeat the last part, please?
Yeah. They say that it is the flow of electricity from the positive above us to the negative below us that is holding us down.
Is it constant? I mean, can we measure this flow?
Yes. Yeah, it is. They say it is actually parallel to what gravity does.
And so why can't I charge my batteries in this flow then, if it exists?
You could.
Well, I believe Tesla did, didn't he? Wasn't he able to pull the electric charge? I mean, here at the ground level, there's about 100 volts per meter that is just floating around in the air.
There's very, very
little
little
amperage. The higher you go, they say the stronger it gets.
Yeah, but there's very little amperage, so how useful it is another question. But I do believe, yeah, with enough effort, you could. So, you know, how refined that has become in the past is up for question. I don't necessarily buy into the Tesla narrative, although I believe the technology that's detailed or attributed to him has existed at some stage, regardless of whether or not it's attributed to Tesla. So yeah, I do believe that technology has certainly existed at some stage. getting it right into conspiratorial territory, but the fact remains, that was the question I was going to ask Zach. So are you punting that as something that you believe in, or because you mentioned that it's proven mathematically, so are you just punting that because it's the current narrative?
No, I actually did a little experiment where I took my Van de Graaff generator and I connected a positive and a negative to 2 different pizza trays. And instead of having the negative on the bottom and the positive on the top, like we do here on the plane, I reversed it and had the negative plate on top and the positive on the bottom. I put a little piece of tissue paper in there, and when I applied a current to it, the tissue paper floated up and stuck to the top plate. Therefore, like switching gravity around within that electric field that I created between those 2 plates. So that's why I believe that that's what's doing it.
Yeah, I saw you perform that test. It's about a year ago,
I manipulated it myself.
Well, it's not an experiment. I mean, you're not establishing the cause and effect.
No, I'm sorry, Nathan. Yeah,
it's all right. I wasn't going to pull you on it.
I apologize for using that word.
It's okay. It's okay. I wasn't going to pull you on it. You get at least 2 strikes before I'll normally pull you up on something like that. But it's. I did see you perform that, and yeah, I completely agree. It was quite eye-opening to see it. But yeah, I didn't actually know that was what was being taught. That's a new one on me. Did anybody else know that?
Nope.
Well, that's a new one on me, Zach.
Maybe we so that we're all aware.
Yeah, it is Walter Lewin's lectures number 802 here on YouTube. It's either lesson 1 or lesson 2 in his 802 section on electricity and magnetism.
Wow.
Great stuff. The first 5 or 6 lessons is all about how electricity acts naturally. And I have learned so much recreating all of his tests and things like that to verify what he's saying is real. But a lot of it is a lot of math, and you have to sit there and wait for him, because I don't understand a lot of the math. But when he explains it and draws things out on his chalkboard and actually does his little tests, the visuals that you see, it's so eye-opening, and he was a great teacher. He still is.
Can you give the numbers of the person again?
On YouTube.
Yeah, sorry, detail it again. I talked over you, sorry.
I was just saying he still teaches. He has a YouTube channel that he still puts out videos all the time.
What's the channel called?
Walter Lewin, Teaching You to Love Physics, something like that.
And it's 80... What, sorry?
802.
802.
802 lecture section. Electricity and magnetism.
Perfect. That's enough data for someone to find it by their own volition.
So this flow of electricity is so constant that it will always have this apparent acceleration of 9 or let's say 10 meters per second square, no matter where I am, towards the ground.
Actually no, because it actually changes. If you look at gravitational field, that's what they call them, charts. Gravity is stronger in some places and weaker in other places.
Mm-hmm. And it was always the same strength at this location, right? I mean, on a mountain or on. So you agree with the gravitational map from NASA?
No, I've never tested it myself.
Okay.
No, I don't believe in me. I like to go and check it out and test it myself. That's how I do things.
Yeah, okay. Of course. So this flow, shouldn't it affect different material differently, like rubber and iron? Shouldn't like 1 kilogram of iron be pulled or pushed, let's say pushed stronger towards the ground than 1 kilogram of rubber? Because rubber has another interaction with electrons than iron.
Well, it's kind of electric field works. It's more has to do with positive different objects. Like helium has a negative charge. Therefore, it pushes away from the ground, which is negative, and goes up in the air towards the positive charge above it.
Yeah. All right.
Does that make electrons, which I don't believe in either, because I've never. The electric charge that applies to everything determines its so-called density, the atomic weight, and all that, all that kind of stuff.
Electric
Did
charge.
you say the positive charge affects the relative density? Is that what you just said, Zach? You were breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, the I don't know how they put it actually. When you look at the periodic table, it'll give you, you know, it has this many electrons on the outside compared to this many protons and neutrons on the inside, and certain ones are charged positively, certain ones are charged more negatively.
So I always thought electrons have almost zero mass, which would imply that the relative density pretty much is only how is it called? Is only coherent to protons and neutrons. So
yeah,
I mean,
I'm just talking about the electric charge that is applied to the atom, because I've never seen an atom, I've never seen a proton, or you know, the neutrons. I've never seen any of that stuff. I don't know if that's even real.
All right.
But everything has an electric charge to it. Everything.
Yeah. So how do electrons exist without protons?
I don't believe in electrons either. I said that a little bit ago. I believe everything has a charge to it.
All right.
How it all works on a small, tiny scale like that, I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I just let it like this. I mean.
But yeah, look at it. Go look into it. He is a wonderful teacher, and I had to watch him each like 5 or 6 times, because there's just so much information he packs into each one. I'll be sitting there thinking about one thing that he said, and I miss a bunch later. And there's so much math in it that's just beyond me. I don't understand the math. That you really have to just sit and wait for those little nuggets of knowledge. But I've learned so much from the man. He's a wonderful teacher. But yeah, if you want to learn more about how they say it works, here, you know, there's super geniuses, or there's people that you claim, you know, that are smarter than you, the scientists. Go watch some of his stuff, because he's a great teacher.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to argue further about it. It doesn't seem logical to me yet. Maybe it is a good explanation. Who knows?
This is typically the case with Zach. He'll come in with something that nobody's heard of, that's way above everyone's pay grade, and is pretty mind-altering in terms of the comprehension you would need in order to wrap your head around it without knowing anything about it. So thank you for that, Zach. Fairly standard fare, I would say.
It's always my pleasure, Nathan. So I'll jump off here, and I'll let somebody else come back on. But thank you for whoever left and allowing me to share that little tidbit of knowledge there.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Zach.
You all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the chat.
See you around.
Yeah. So, Eric, you're on the panel. I'm not really reading what you're reading, but a lot of what you're saying needs approving for some reason. Who are you arguing with in the chat?
It's Ronnie Seaside Wheelbarrow, the sniper. He has to come on and do porn bombs and stuff.
Hello, Chocolate. Welcome back.
Hello.
Then you're back up again.
So, is it worth going back to relative density in the direction that you can't prove, or is it just accepted that we have a direction, and you want me to believe that there's a direction there because you say there must be?
This is the only logical thing, but
we realize that within science you would have to manipulate that by turning it upside down to prove that point, right?
Well,
otherwise it's pseudoscience and falls outside the scientific method. But I've got to answer the phone. I'll be back.
All right.
That's not very fair. He's just left you with it. But on the other hand, he's left the mic with you, Zinder. So
yeah, sure. Why don't we go ahead and, since there isn't a real globe Earther, why don't we go ahead and why don't I tell you why we obviously live on a globe?
Sure.
And I can keep talking to Roxanne if you want.
Man, you knocked yourself out, Zinder.
Here today.
Guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Are you a
Sebastian.
baller?
Now, hold on one second, Zinder.
I am one of the evil ballers.
Perfect. Sorry.
Even better.
I actually have a question for you guys. I know you've talked about this, or I've heard this mentioned before, but you usually, when you do your housekeeping in the beginning, you talk about like scientific evidence for gravity, and this usually gets dismissed pretty quickly. But what do you say about the experiments that you can do, like here on Earth, to prove that there is an attractive force between masses, like the Cavendish experiment? What's your position on that? Or why do you think that doesn't show that there is gravity?
Well, there's two reasons for that, really. I mean, does someone else want to field this? I'll do it if no one else does.
I didn't catch the question. What was the question?
Don't worry about it. So the two reasons are, number one, no, there is not attractive forces between masses. That is not the current accepted scientists' opinion on this matter. Not that we care about people's opinions on these things, but the current opinion from people who claim to be scientists is that the bending of space-time gives rise to gravitational attraction and not a mysterious force that was currently or was described by Cavendish/Newtonian gravity. So that is not the current scientific understanding. That wand has been snapped in two by Einstein and the bending of space-time.
Sorry, but I have to disagree there, because those are basically the same thing.
No, they're fundamentally different.
Not only because the current best understanding is that's right, is basically Einstein's general theory of relativity, but that doesn't mean that Newton's theory is completely false. The equations that Newton proposed and that other people tried to prove, and that are like the basis that basically you put in Newton's equation of gravity when you do the Cavendish experiment, that equation is still true, but it's not true in all possible cases. And certainly
that means it's false then.
No, it's just I mean, these things are just models. They are not describing everything.
So you're saying that a reification fallacy model is acceptable when it doesn't give you the answer that is accurate, but you still say that it's okay despite current science saying that that wand has been snapped in half. Are you saying that Scientific America is inaccurate? I can put it on screen if you'd like, and you can tell me where they go wrong.
Yes, please.
You can do that if
yes,
you
please,
must.
Can you read that
quote? Let me finish this point. I'm not saying that what they say is wrong. I'm just trying to tell you that Einstein's theory is basically, think of it like an expansion of Newton's theory.
Sorry, I kicked myself.
Okay, should I repeat the last part then? What I'm trying to say is that Einstein's theory is an extension of the Newtonian theory.
No, it isn't. It's not an extension. It's a replacement. It's a replacement.
You can even
got that wrong, sir. You have that
wrong.
Hold on. Before you get into a tete-a-tete, hold on, Sebastian.
Newtonian limit.
Hold on. There's a quote that we can read from Scientific American to back our assertion. So if you want to hear it, Anthony will read it to you, and then we can go from there.
So I'm screen sharing it, Nathan, if you don't mind presenting. And if you want to click the fingerprint at the bottom of the Hangout, so on my box, you'll see that there's a white page so that you can see where I'm reading from. This is cited from scientificamerican.com, and you can just type in that phrase to get the article itself. And if I scroll down, it talks about a bit of background with regards to Newton. And what I'll have to do to find it, because I've got it in big text, is if I type in snapped, There we go. So what this is saying is that Einstein created his general theory of relativity, which provides our modern understanding of gravity with the expressed purpose of expunging non-locality from physics. Newton's gravity acted at a distance as if by magic, and general relativity snapped the wand in two. That doesn't mean it was an extension of. It means it snapped it in two, meaning put it in the bin. By showing that the curvature of space-time and not an invisible force gives rise to gravitational attraction. So when you stated it was an extension of, that was wrong. It snapped it in two. So it replaced it, and it is the current science. Whether it's right or not is not the point. The point, what I'm saying, is that Newton's mathematical principles for gravitation have been replaced, not added to. You can't use Newtonian principles to be accurate and up to date with current science. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, but we have to agree to disagree here.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Let me just.
No, we don't. You're wrong, sir.
No, let me try to explain what I mean. I don't think you're quite getting the point that I'm trying to make. You take Einstein's equations, the equations that Einstein proposed for his theory, and then what you can do is you can do something that you do all the time in mathematics. You do a limit. You say we are only looking at special cases where the velocities are very small compared to the speed of light, and where the amount of mass density is also very small. So there is no big amount of curvature, so no black holes and nothing of this crazy stuff. For instance, two massive balls of iron on Earth. For this scenario, when you do that with the equations of Einstein, you recover F equals G times M1 times N2 over R squared, Newton's equation. That doesn't mean that Newton's equation is always true and is right, but there is a certain set of circumstances, and we know what these circumstances are, where you can still apply them and they give you the right result when you do calculations with them.
So in that case,
hold on, Anthony. Hold on, Anthony.
It's a tool.
Hold
it's
on,
not
Arwin.
actually a thing.
Let him finish.
Well, he's made his
no,
point.
just let him finish.
What you need
if he
to
wants
do
to
is
round
write
up
to
and
Scientific
summarise,
America
hold
and tell them
Anthony,
that they've got it wrong.
Just let him. You're hijacking his point. Just let him round out and summarise his point if he wants to.
No, I mean, I was almost finished. It's like, and I think what the article in the Scientific American, I can't, like, I don't want to say that they are wrong or something. I would just have to take a little bit of time, just read the whole article to understand what's. I haven't read this before. I don't know what they're really going on about here.
Well, they work in two.
So I would have to get back
they work in two completely different mathematical formulas. So I can't remember the name of the Newtonian one, but pseudo-Riemannian 4 space is what the Einsteinian mathematics works in. So they're completely different in terms of the way they calculate things. They are nothing alike at all. They are totally different. One is objects of mass attracting one another. The other is the bending of space-time, if I could get to the end of my point. So they are fundamentally different while you talk all over me. So one is the attraction of objects of mass. The other is the bending of space-time. They are fundamentally different. They are not the same. They're not an extension of one another. They are not useful. They are not in the same league in terms of how they are calculating things. One does not extend from the other, as you have asserted.
Well, no, I'm not saying like that one extends from the other. That's certainly not right. But what is right is that basically the calculations that you can do with the Newtonian equations are still right, or are still they are still a good model in the sense that they give you the right results if you put in certain numbers and like real masses and stuff in a certain limit where you have, again, and you said something about this 4-dimensional space that is used for general relativity. That's true, but it turns out you can ignore that if you don't have a lot of curvature in space. When the curvature is very, very small, then you don't have to use this complicated formula.
How would you respond if I said that the only way that you can demonstrate gravity is within maths, in that you can't demonstrate gravity with physics or within the scientific method? You can only do it mathematically. And then in that, if you accept that, then my question is, how strong is your evidence if it's only mathematical?
not quite sure what you mean here, because like I'm a physicist, so if I can demonstrate something only mathematical, then it's useless for me. I need to have a theory that gives me a test where I can test something experimentally.
Exactly, I agree. So what's the test for gravity then that you accept that proves that gravity exists?
Well, one of the tests that has been done, and like Newton proposed his equation, and then some guy named Cavendish and many others after him performed this experiment, where you get this torsion handle where
we know what the claimed. Sorry to interrupt. I'm about to round the show out, but I want to keep it concise for the end of the show. We are familiar with the apparatus used in the Cavendish quote-unquote experiment. However, what would be the observed phenomena in that experiment?
Do you want to wrap up the show now, or should I?
No, it's a concise answer, because your observed phenomena is contained within the experiment as opposed to a naturally occurring phenomena, which is primarily what science is exclusively, in fact, interested in. Naturally occurring phenomena, as opposed to the outcome of a man-made device. That is where you get your phenomena from. So it doesn't adhere to the scientific method. It doesn't adhere to step one, observe a phenomena, and then try and establish the cause of that phenomena, because the phenomena is in the apparatus, man-made.
What we'll do is we'll do a timeout, finish the show off, and then we'll start the next show with Cavendish and step one of the scientific method.
Sure, that makes sense.
I'd be okay with that.
But I mean, you can have the last word if you like, Sebastian.
I don't have to. I think I can't convince you now, and I don't think I have enough time to make a good point now. So just let's wrap this up here, and whoever's interested will have to watch the next one, I guess.
Well, there's another show that's going to roll on afterwards. I'm just going to tend to my kid for a few minutes. We'll just have a short break, and I'll literally thank you so that it's wrapped up within this live show. And then in about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll have another debate start live. And people will join in the meantime as they are doing. Hello, Daniel. I'll welcome you properly once I'm off air. So with that, I will say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then smash that dislike button, then smash it again. But if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!